Waiting for David Hand?
And Lenczewski. I was just with David Hand.
Well, he might be his biggest ally in this because he can pull it out, right?
So we were just meeting with chamber people. It was all four leaders. You've seen the show many times before. Yes. So. So today on the floor we're taking up the tax bill that is going to provide some middle-class tax relief and also repeal 3 business-to-business taxes. I think it's probably the fastest that a substantive tax bill has gotten through the legislature in at least as long as I can remember, and it is a priority for us, and we want to make sure that we get that tax relief out to Minnesotans in as timely a manner as possible because people are in the midst of filing their taxes right now. We anticipate that it'll be a relatively quick and focused discussion and debate. The Republicans twice this week already have tried to declare an urgency to move this ahead, and we anticipate that we have the same urgency today to move ahead with this important tax relief. And I'll turn it over to Erin.
Hi. As the speaker said, I anticipate that we will have a quick and focused debate today on conformity and on the business-to-business tax repeal. And we're prepared to do that because our members have remained in touch with the people of Minnesota over the course of the summer and the fall. And they did hear a lot about the impact of the B2B taxes. And so they have been prepared to take this vote, and we're ready to go. I hope that we're able to take up, a respectful, obviously, debate. We're largely in agreement on this, and as little games playing as possible so we can get a clean bill over to the Senate, and then they can take it up and we can get it to the governor's desk so we can take action on this immediately.
Mr. Speaker, the governor said you've got an excellent proposal, but it doesn't go far enough, and he's anticipating a second bill. Have you discussed that with him?
Representative Lenczewski and the tax committee are already working on putting together a second tax bill as we speak. This tax bill that we're passing today really is, the pieces that are in there because they are the most urgent that we get done. There's a timeliness to them that's important. So we're already working on a second tax bill to address a number of other issues, including some additional property tax relief. There's things like TIF districts and those types of things that members need or want for their communities, and so there will be another tax bill.
And have you got a dollar amount on that? Sort of a target yet?
No.
Have you talked to the Senate about getting them to pass a similar bill?
Yeah, we certainly have had conversations with them, and I think that they understand the need and the urgency to move on this, and we'll have to continue those conversations.
Are you frustrated with your friends across the hall, from minimum wage to not taking a similar approach in content and speed on this bill?
No, I hope that they move quickly on this bill because I think it's the right thing for Minnesotans, but that's the legislative process, and we want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard.
Representative Lenczewski, how does this match up to the...
I'm sorry.
How does this match, other than the additional tax credits the governor proposed for new things, how does this match up with his...
Well, it mostly matches, so we've worked closely with the governor and the Senate, I should say. We have a great relationship with the Senate, don't be fooled. Senator Skoye and Senator Rest and Senator Bach are deliberating on this, and we think they're going to get where where Minnesotans need them to be. As the speaker said and the majority leader, why are we doing this right now? And only these two things, repealing B2Bs and federal conformity, is because the clock's ticking. This is the time-sensitive stuff we need to do right now. We need to get these middle-class tax cuts to Minnesotans because they're filing their taxes, and we need to repeal those B2Bs. So, yes, there'll be another tax bill. We'll work with the Senate on that one, too. But these are the items, these two big items that we really need to address absolutely as quickly as possible. We feel really good about the fact that it's been quite bipartisan, other than a few little comments here and there, and we hope it will continue to be. We're thrilled to have the governor's support, and I think the Senate will get there, too.
Now, you keep saying another tax bill. Just to be clear, are you talking about another tax cut bill? The Senate's talking about another tax bill, but not another tax cut bill.
I think you have to direct that to the Speaker and the Majority Leader, although we're hoping, and I think you heard him say, we are looking for some more tax cuts in the area, property tax cuts. So, yes, we're hoping to work on that. And then there are other items that, from your vantage point, some people call them tax cuts and some people call them spending in their districts. I mean, it depends how people define them. But, there's a lot of things that are going on that we normally would have spent the first month dealing with the smaller bills and get to the big stuff, but we started with the important stuff because middle-class tax cuts while they're filing their taxes, and repealing the B2Bs were the most important thing to our caucus, I think, and to Minnesotans right now.
Since the Senate is a little bit more skeptical about the B2Bs than the rest or the conformity issue, are you at all willing to toss that over to make sure that the conformity gets passed quickly?
I'm not, but yes,
No, I think we're going to be able to do all of them as we move through the process. And I think it is important for people to understand when we talk about federal conformity. When we talk about federal conformity, what we mean, it is elimination of the marriage penalty. 650,000 Minnesotans will see over $100 of tax cuts as a result of that. The working family credit, or dependent care credit, those types of things. 50,000 Minnesotans will see $300 of tax relief as a result of that. It's college and tuition aid. It's people who have bought and sold their home this year will see tax relief as a result of this bill today. That's kind of the pocketbook meaning of what federal conformity is.
How about for an individual? What's the pocketbook meaning? Can you say how much the average Minnesotan will save under this?
You really can't, because it depends who you are. So if you adopted a child,
range, people have said, it's only $100. That's been put out there a lot.
People, it's going to be over $10,000. I mean, if you foreclosed on a home and you were forgiven that debt from the Congress, and now Minnesota's counting that as income and you expected it to be wiped away, you're going to have to pay taxes on that. Surprise, surprise, unless we pass this bill and unless we pass it timely. So there are huge price tags for some people, smaller amounts for other, but overwhelmingly for middle and low-income Minnesotans.
And I would be surprised if anybody would say $100 or $300 of relief is nothing. I mean, for a lot of families, that's a very significant item, and I don't think that we should dismiss it so lightly.
If speed is the issue, why aren't you doing the marriage penalty retroactively? You're getting criticized from Republicans on that.
It's expensive to do the marriage penalty retroactively, and what we would rather do is actually make it permanent into the future. I think that's the policy choice before us today.
And if I can add on that, we passed that last year in 2013.
We did.
And we gave everybody an opportunity to make sure that got done in 2013, and we didn't succeed, although the House Democrats were very strong in that. I think the question on that, Tom, is that, we can either, given that, we've got limitations within how the Senate thinks we might move and how the governor might move, we could either give married people a one-time tax cut for current year, or we could give it to them forever. And we're choosing to give it to them forever. So I think you just ask yourself, would you like $10 today, or would you like $10 every year for the rest of your life? We're choosing the latter, and we're making a policy choice that permanently fixing the marriage penalty, that's why it's called a fix, is more important than 1 year and bringing these things back year after year after year. So we're looking for permanent fix of the marriage penalty.
You mentioned you did some of this last year. Aren't you going back over your bill last year and doing what you wanted to do in the first place?
Yeah, we pretty much have almost every single thing in there. There's a few things. Congress has conformed sometimes on some provisions only 1 year at a time, so they're gone. We even have some things in this bill where they only conformed they only put the tax cut out for 2014, so we're only doing it for 2014. But other than the one that was just mentioned, we've covered all our bases in 2013. I think most importantly is we're doing everything forward as much as we possibly can. And so we feel really good about that these aren't just one-time tax cuts of $503 million. the majority of it are permanent ongoing tax cuts for middle and low-income Minnesotans.
Is there any dissent within your caucus on this bill or this priority being kind of the first out of the gate, or will it be unanimous from the Democratic side today?
We'll see how our members vote, but largely our members have heard from Minnesotans and understand that middle-class tax cuts are important. Here's the good news for us. Because we were able to balance the budget honestly, and Minnesota's economy is recovering and recovering strongly, we have the opportunity to take this step. And we have for a number of years now talked about how important it is to build the middle class from the middle class out. And today, this tax conformity and the tax cuts that we're talking about contribute to that, as does our work on the minimum wage. And we're committed to that. We'll see how the votes go, but our caucus is behind this today.
You think there might be some who vote against a tax cut of this size?
We'll see how their votes go up, but I think our caucus is behind this. I know our caucus is behind this.
On tax bill number 2, what kind of property tax relief are you looking at?
Well, that has
You got a rough idea?
We're working on it. I mean, we want to. I can only say we are interested in everyone. We want to talk about homeowners and renters and our partners with local units of government. So we're interested in providing even more property tax relief than we did last year. And I should note, it's the first time we've seen property taxes go down in over a dozen years. But we want to do even more. And if we're sensitive to the size of the surplus, and we think there's a legitimate argument for helping people even further, given the surplus.
Is LGA going to be in the package potentially?
Not clear.
We don't know.
Do you have a target for that?
No.
Tell him to tell me what it is.
The governor is proposing a significant boost in the budget reserve. Last week you suggested not much interest in, I think, what you termed mattress stuffing. What do you think of that proposal, and what might the House do with the reserve?
Well, we haven't completely figured out what our entire budget is going to be yet. I think the governor came out with a budget that in large part aligns with what our values are, which is making sure that we're growing the middle class economy. I imagine there will be some differences and discussions that we'll have, but I think many of the things that we're talking about or thinking about, using some one-time money to invest in infrastructure and transportation, that also goes to the same notion I think the governor is pursuing, which is making sure that as we pass our budget this year, we're making sure that the good work we did last year to keep a sound budget continues into the future.
Madam Chair, the governor proposed repealing the gift tax and extending the estate tax. Will that be in the second bill?
We want to talk to the governor about that in the Senate. There's some good reasons for making sure that folks who are in the gift tax situation, that Minnesota has that. I think, and I haven't been able to read every word of what the governor's proposing on the state, but he is not proposing full conformity. He's doing some changes there. Full conformity on the state tax costs $120 million a year, $240 million a biennium, so it's a big price tag for a small group of people. But he is proposing something, and we want to take a look. But I think in general, we're showing through this bill that we're interested in tax relief for middle class and lower income Minnesotans, and those two items in particular are not that.
Just go back to the governor's budget plan. Do you have any priorities in terms of spending that you think need to be done, whether it's paying more for nursing homes, other things?
Well, I think a lot of the spending items that the governor laid out, including the biggest one of which was the increasing long-term care worker and nursing home funding, are something that we support very strongly as well. I don't think today is necessarily the time to talk about what additional spending we're going to do. We want to really focus on the tax bill today and getting that piece of the legislation done, and then we'll kind of look at what other items are out there to think about. But we have talked about, for instance, using some of it for capital projects, using cash to pay for some capital investment stuff.
In an election year, how important is it for the House to be able to say we did middle-class tax cuts when your opponents are all going to be talking about how much you increased taxes by?
Well, I would just say we did this last year. I mean, I really hope you will recall that even in a deficit, we found our priority was those middle-class tax cuts, and we passed federal conformity off the House floor. So we were in a deficit, yet we made sure we did those middle-class tax cuts. So it isn't an election year politics for us. We did it last year, and we think that some of our partners in the Senate and the governor's office, feel like they can breathe a little better now that there's a surplus, and we hope that they're going to join us now. But this was a top priority for our caucus last year, and was in the last year tax bill.
Republicans are saying you're just cleaning up the mistakes you made last year. How do you respond to that?
I think the good news is Minnesota's economy has put us in a place where we can, make some of these tax changes, provide the federal conformity, which we wanted to do. The Republicans voted against last year, and deal with some of the business-to-business taxes that we have heard about out on the campaign trail. But the thing I think that's important to remember is that the budget that we passed last year, and there were tax increases in that budget, certainly, but what that was invested in was things that Minnesotans value. 80% or more of it went into education. That's where people want to see investments made. So we think the budget we passed last year is the right budget for Minnesota. And if you look at the claims the Republicans are making about the budget we passed last year, that our economy was going to tank as a result of it, it's clearly not the case. We think we're making the right decisions for the state of Minnesota. But the good news is because of that budget work, that prudent budget work, we now have this surplus and the opportunity to provide this middle class tax relief. All right.
All right, well, thanks all for coming. I'm State Representative Jenifer Loon, Deputy Minority Leader in the House, and with me is Representative Greg Davids, Republican lead on the House Tax Committee. And we just wanted to make a few comments in advance of the House taking up tax conformity and tax relief bill, House File 1777. I think you will see support for the bill moving out of the House. But as folks who believe strongly that with a surplus of $1.2 billion, with less than half of that being devoted to tax relief for Minnesota hardworking families, this bill doesn't go far enough. And for those families that are going to be losing out on about $200 of tax relief that they should be getting back, if we did full conformity with the full deductibility for married joint filers or the marriage penalty, and also dependent care credit, so for people with young children, they're going to be losing $200 because we don't fully conform. So for those people, it's a little, too late on this conformity bill. So we should be giving more. Less than half of the budget surplus is being given back to the taxpayers through this bill today. We can do better.
And you've seen the House Minority Report, the Republican Minority Report, which gives a much more substantial amount back to the hardworking taxpayers of Minnesota. One real concern that I have is, if history is any indication, the House has not held up too well when it comes to tax conformity or tax ideas that go over to the Senate. So I do applaud the governor for laying a date down, March 14th. I think we do need to get him a bill. Republicans have made every effort to give the governor a better bill, and hopefully the governor will step up and also try to provide more tax relief than what the House is. So this is a start. We'll get it out of the House today, and then hopefully it can be improved along the way. Like I said, our track record has been very abysmal when going up against the Senate, unlike 4 years ago and 3 years ago, of course, where the House positions did prevail. So I'm going to be encouraging Chair Lenczewski to make her bill broader and more robust. But we'll get this bill out today and then try to improve it from there. So we need to get more back to the Minnesota taxpayers so that they can spend the money. And this is also, this bill, if you look at it, it's kind of an attempt to clean up the mess from last year, from the 2013 bill, where we have a situation here where they kind of voted for it before they're going to vote against it. So they're voting against their massive tax increases today, and I'll give them credit for that. It's a start, but this is a minor cleanup bill from the debacle last year. And we think it should be a more robust cleanup of the 2013 tax bill. And we would stand for questions.
You said you want it to be a more robust bill. You know, right now the governor's proposing over $100 million more in his proposal. Is that sufficient, or do you have a specific number perhaps that you'd want to see?
Well, that's not sufficient. If you look at the minority report from several days ago, we send a lot more of it back to the taxpayers. The governor is going in the right direction. And any tax relief that we can get for the people of Minnesota we'll certainly want. As I said before, if we don't get our way completely, we're not going to take our toys and go home. We're going to work hard to continue to try and clean up the mess that was the 2013 tax bill.
Well, Representative, you're wearing a button. Both of you are wearing buttons that say "Give it back." Do you want to give the entire surplus back? $1 billion, $1.2 billion?
Yes. Yes, I think we should.
So how?
Increase for nursing home workers?
Well, there's a couple things here. First of all, the 1.2. If you look at the minority report, and I'm supporting the minority report, so that doesn't give quite all of it back. We left some money in there for the 5% campaign, and also, I believe, for the school lunch campaign. There's some different things that we left in there. So let's give 95% of it back, because there are a couple things I think we probably should be doing, and hopefully future forecasts will even look better if we get more money back into the private economy.
And you referenced last year where you made a big deal out of the warehouse tax, the gift tax, the farm equipment tax, all of that. From then until now, mistake for them, for the Democrats?
I believe it was a huge mistake. I mean, job-killing tax increases, I believe, are always a huge mistake. And just think of the impact. I mean, tax policy affects behavior. And think what we did with the warehouse tax. It's not even in effect yet. Hopefully it will never go into effect. Jobs were lost in Minnesota. Warehouses are being built in other states that should have been built here. For example, some in Missouri, some in Fargo, some in Wisconsin, a huge one in Ames, Iowa. I mean, these are facts. This really happened, and the law didn't even go into effect yet. But businesses don't plan 2 weeks out. They plan 2 years out, 5 years out. And so those taxes were terrible mistakes. If you think about the governor's original proposal where he had all the business-to-business taxes there, he went around the state, and to his credit, he saw that Minnesotans didn't want that. And it was bad for business, it was bad for Minnesotans. So he totally backed off. But then the Senate, didn't come from the House, but then the Senate put the 3 business-to-business taxes in there, and they did kill jobs. And that's unfortunate, and that's what we want to get rid of. So if we have to take it incrementally starting today, we'll do that. But we have to continue to give, the lion's share of this money back to the people.
Do you expect a unanimous vote in your caucus for this coming out today?
I never try to read what our caucus is going to do.
Do you anticipate any member would vote against a tax cut?
I don't know why you would. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weak, I think, to argue that, well, it's not big enough. I think we start. Well, I think, yeah, but that doesn't mean I'm voting against the bill today. We start today, and we move forward, and we do the best we can every day. Now, a week ago this last Tuesday, in my mind, is a day that will live in infamy. I'm sitting there in the tax committee with my Diet Mountain Dew and my cheese and crackers, and Democrats are running over each other, trying to get down the table to repeal taxes as fast and as much as they can. And I'm saying, if you would have told me a month ago this was going to happen, I would have said, it's not possible. So it is a day that will live in infamy to have Democrats running over themselves to get down to the table to try and cut taxes and see who can do it the most, and doing it enthusiastically. I said, this is a great day for Minnesota. I didn't expect it. I'm a bit stunned, but in a pleasant way.
Yeah, and I think, Pat, to finish on your question, yes. I mean, the ink wasn't even dry on this tax bill last year, and the backpedaling had already started about what a bad idea this was. And businesses felt, at least the ones in my area that I talked to, really blindsided, because when the governor came out with his original proposal on business-to-business taxes, they worked hard to communicate with him. He assured them he was retreating from that position. And then at the last minute, these were put into the tax bill and passed in the very last few days of the session. So I think they really felt betrayed from that decision, and I think that led to some pretty quick action this year to try to undo those mistakes.
And please think about my district for just a moment, if you will, because I think about it all the time. I'm privileged to represent District 28B, which borders Iowa and Wisconsin. And let's just say you have a $700,000 combine that needs a $50,000 repair. We just added $3,500 to that farmer's bill. Now, we have wonderful implement dealerships in Fillmore and Houston counties, but they got some pretty good ones in Iowa and Wisconsin, too. They are coming over the border, the implement dealers, saying, we'll repair it for 7% less. And that's exactly what's happening, and that's wrong, and that's bad for Minnesota.
On the income tax cuts that are going to be up here today, are you folks afraid this is going to be the extent of it for this legislative session, considering that the Senate is not quite as enthusiastic about it as the House?
Well, I think that's a risk that is being taken here. First, without doing full conformity, so leaving that marriage penalty and that dependent care credit issue off the table, and we are getting very close to the deadline for tax filing, I think we're running the risk of not getting this done. And the Senate's lack of fervor in taking up this action quickly, I think, is very concerning for taxpayers.
And your general reaction to the governor's supplemental today, he's putting a lot in the budget reserve instead of the budget reserve. As responsible Republicans think that it ought to go back to taxpayers instead of being a cushion?
Well, I think we have quite a bit of cushion, thanks to the 2011 tax bill. We left them in very, very good shape, if you think about it for a second. And so, am I concerned that this might be it? Yes, I'm concerned about that. But I see that the governor has come out. I don't think this is big enough for the governor. And any move that I can make to support more money going back to Minnesotans, I'll be there.
Representative Davids, how concerned are you about the Senate? Representative Loon talked about that. They were the source of a bunch of the taxes you hate. They're taking a very different approach, not just in speed, but in content.
My entire life I've had great concerns about the Senate. I really have. And I'm very concerned about them in this case. I think we have to move at the speed of, not the speed of light, but warp speed. I did find out that warp speed is faster than the speed of light. And again, I do thank the House for getting this bill to us today. If you would have told me 2-3 months ago this is going to happen, I would have said, you haven't been around the Capitol very long. So this is encouraging. This is encouraging. It doesn't go far enough. I don't think we've seen the last of it. And as I said, our history negotiating against the Senate in the last year has been abysmal. And so, on the other hand, I think Senator Bach said he wasn't going to take up the propane $20 million for a while either. And when there's a motion to take that up, he did. So hopefully history will repeat itself.
You mentioned your support for the 5% increase for home community care program, but the governor only provided a 4% increase. Any concern about that?
Well, again, I think those workers in that industry need some help. And again, if it's, you don't just throw the whole thing out because you don't get exactly what you want. And so I'm hoping we can negotiate some things there. And that's really not, I'm not in the middle of what's going on there, but we vote on the things that come before us in the minority and try and do the best job we can. So I'm excited about today to get this debate started. We just need more.
What do you guys think about the Garofalo amendment that he's going to bring up on saying no to any Super Bowl tax incentives as part of the Super Bowl bid that's going to be put in next month?
Well, any member can offer an amendment that's pre-filed and taken up on the floor, and I think, we've heard stories in the news that may be an effort that will be underway this year. So I think perhaps Representative Garofalo is making a point about if we're going to do tax relief, where best should it go?
Do you support the idea of having any tax incentives to get a Super Bowl here?
I do not.
When you mentioned the fact that you were saying it's not full conformity, I just want to be clear. You're saying it's not full conformity because it's not retroactive. There will be full conformity beyond the estate tax, right? Moving forward.
Moving forward. So for the taxes people are filing now, for their 2013 taxes filing between now and April 15th, families, joint filers, married joint filers will not get their full standard deduction from the state of Minnesota. So they will have to add back some money for their state return, and also dependent care. If you have young children and you have dependent care expenses, you will not get a credit from the state for some of those expenses. So that is additional money out of the pockets of Minnesota families if we do not add that into today's conformity bill.
Trying to do that?
There will be an effort to do that.
What's the price tag?
We're about $70 million.
$70 million
for everything. And I really think that the Senate stalls on these issues at their own peril. In that, as of a week ago, 29% of Minnesotans had already filed their taxes. And so I'm sure it's 35 to 40% right now. So this is something that is of great urgency that we have to get done now. Now, in talking to Commissioner Franz, there's some encouraging news that some folks that have already filed, they may be able to do it internally within the department so that they don't have to have the expense of amending their returns. So I think we need speed. I feel the need for speed. Thank you. Thank you.